Shawn kissed me, tentatively at first, like he was giving me the chance to pull away. I didn't. Something dark and thrilling surged inside me. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. Whatever it was, it pulled me under. The kiss deepened. His hand slid into my hair. I tasted the whiskey on his lips, felt the desperate edge in the way he touched me. A small part of me screamed that this was wrong. This was dangerous. But louder than that was the part of me that had always felt unseen, forgotten, second best. For once, someone was choosing me. Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, do well to subscribe and hit on notifications. To all my returning subscribers, thank you for always watching my videos. If anyone had asked me a year ago, I would have said we were the perfect family. At least that's what it looked like from the outside. Mom Miriam was beautiful, polished, always smiling for the cameras at Shawn's business parties. Shawn, my stepdad, was the kind of man people envied. A powerful business tycoon, wealthy beyond imagination, respected by everyone who mattered. And me, I was the pretty, quiet daughter from Mom's first marriage. The one they showed off like a little trophy, whenever it suited the moment. When Mom married Shawn, I was just 10 years old. I barely remembered my real father, Abel, a blurry face and a handful of sad memories. Shawn became the man I called Dad. Even if deep down, it never felt quite right. There was always a space between us, polite but cold. Still, growing up in that mansion, I had everything. The designer clothes, the private schools, vacations to places I couldn't even pronounce. I told myself love wasn't always loud. Maybe their marriage, their life was just a different kind of love. Quiet, reserved, practical. But now, standing in the grand foyer of the house I once called home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had cracked. Mom looked tired. Her usual glow was dulled, hidden beneath heavy makeup. She smiled too brightly when she greeted me, pulling me into a hug that felt rehearsed. "Baby, you look beautiful," she said, kissing my cheek. "College life suits you." I smiled back, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Thanks, Mom. You look great too." Shawn wasn't even there when I arrived. Mom said he was working late. Again. It wasn't until hours later, when he walked through the front door, that I saw him for the first time in months. His dark hair was still perfect, his suit sharp. But something was different about his eyes. They looked hollow. Or maybe I was imagining things. He smiled at me, only me. And for a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Something that made my skin prickle. "Look at you, Hazel," he said, voice low and proud. "All grown up." Mom beamed like it was the most natural thing in the world. I laughed awkwardly, brushing it off. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just the shock of seeing me after so long. But over dinner, the cracks became harder to ignore. Shawn barely looked at Mom. He asked me questions, lingering ones about my classes, my friends, my plans for the future. Mom would try to cut in to share a story or a joke, but Shawn barely responded. His attention kept coming back to me like a tide he couldn't control. I caught Mom's glances, tight smiles, little frowns she quickly wiped away. She wasn't stupid. Neither was I. After dessert, she excused herself to take a call from one of her charity boards. I sat alone with Shawn in the sprawling dining room, the chandelier above us throwing strange shadows on the walls. "You've become a remarkable young woman," he said, sipping his wine. His gaze was steady and tense. "Your mother must be proud." I shifted uncomfortably. "She is," I said, voice small. "She worked hard for me." He smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile you give a stepdaughter. It was something else. Something dangerous. Later that night, lying in my old bedroom, I stared up at the ceiling and tried to shake the feeling crawling up my spine. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the tension in the house, the way Shawn looked at me, the cold distance between him and Mom, it was just stress. Maybe the perfect family was still perfect. But deep down I knew better. Perfect things are often the ones that shatter the loudest. The night it all changed started so simply. Mom had a charity gala downtown and asked if I wanted to come. I said no, I had a headache. It wasn't a lie exactly. Something about the tension between her and Shawn had made my head throb all day. I didn't feel like smiling for pictures or pretending everything was perfect. I just wanted quiet. She kissed my forehead, gave me that same strained smile, and left in a rush of perfume and high heels. I was alone with Shawn. First it was normal. I stayed in my room scrolling through my phone while the house grew quiet. The heavy walls swallowed every sound. Then, sometime around midnight, I got thirsty and headed downstairs. He was there, sitting by the pool, a glass of something dark in his hand. The pool lights made the water glow electric blue. He didn't hear me approach, not until I slid open the glass door. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, his voice low and rough. "Yeah," I said. "Too quiet." He smiled a little, patting the lounge chair next to him. "Join me." I hesitated for a moment too long. I should have gone back upstairs. I should have said good night and locked my door. Instead, I sat down beside him. The night air was warm, heavy. We talked at first about nothing, college, summer plans, how different the house felt now that I was older. I noticed the way his eyes lingered when I laughed, how close his knee was to mine. Every second stretched longer than it should have. "You've grown into an incredible woman, Hazel," he said suddenly, his voice softer now. "Not just beautiful. Strong." My heart thudded painfully in my chest. "Thanks, Shawn," I whispered, not knowing what else to say. He leaned closer and the world seemed to tilt. "I mean it," he said, his eyes locking with mine. "You're different. Special." And just like that, the invisible line between us snapped. I didn't know who moved first. Maybe it was both of us. One moment there was just air between us, and the next there was heat, breath, the brush of his fingers along my jaw. He kissed me. Tentatively at first, like he was giving me the chance to pull away. I didn't. Something dark and thrilling surged inside me. Maybe it was the loneliness. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered. Whatever it was, it pulled me under. The kiss deepened. His hand slid into my hair. I tasted the whiskey on his lips, felt the desperate edge in the way he touched me. A small part of me screamed that this was wrong. This was dangerous. But louder than that was the part of me that had always felt unseen, forgotten, second best. For once someone was choosing me. Me. We broke apart suddenly, both breathing hard. I looked away, shame curling hot in my stomach. "This can't happen," I said, voice shaking. "I know," Shawn whispered, but he didn't sound convinced. His fingers still brushed against mine, tracing invisible lines across my skin. The silence stretched between us, filled with all the things we couldn't say, and all the things we already had. Later, in bed, I stared into the dark, my body humming with confusion and guilt. What we had done was a betrayal. A terrible, unforgivable betrayal. But even as I told myself it could never happen again, a small, dangerous part of me already knew the truth. It had only just begun. The next morning I tried to pretend nothing had happened. I showered, pulled on a fresh dress, and smiled at my reflection like a liar. Maybe I told myself if I acted normal, the guilt wouldn't claw at me so hard. Mom returned from the gala sometime afternoon. She looked exhausted, makeup smudged, heels dangling from her hand. I rushed to help her, hoping she wouldn't notice anything different about me. About us. For a while everything stayed quiet. But things like secrets don't stay buried for long. They rot from the inside out. I caught Shawn watching me when he thought no one was looking. Lingering glances across the breakfast table. The way his hand brushed against mine too casually when he handed me a plate. I felt it every time. Small sparks of electricity that left me breathless and guilty. And Mom? She wasn't blind. Mothers never are. It started small. Her eyes would narrow when she caught Shawn staring a little too long. She'd stiffen when I laughed at one of his dry jokes. One evening, when I leaned across the table to grab the salt, she slammed her glass down hard enough to crack the stem. "You're different," she said sharply that night after dinner, her voice brittle. I blinked. "What do you mean?" You act strange around Shawn, she said, her gaze piercing. And he looks at you like. She cut herself off, shaking her head as if trying to erase the thought. I forced a laugh, cheeks burning. Mom, come on. You're imagining things. But she wasn't. Not really. The more she watched us, the worse it got. She started picking fights with Shawn, small things at first. Why he was late for dinner. Why he was distracted during conversations. Why he complimented my dress but barely noticed hers. The house grew colder with each passing day. One afternoon while Mom was out shopping, I decided to clean out my old room, stuffing childhood trinkets into boxes. That's when I found it. Tucked inside an old biology textbook, a note. It wasn't long. Just a few lines scribbled in Shawn's handwriting. You're everything I didn't know I needed. I can't stop thinking about you. Last night. I can still feel you. I froze, heart hammering against my ribs. I should have burned it. Thrown it away. Anything. Instead, I slipped it between the pages again, and shoved the book deep into my backpack, vowing to destroy it later. I didn't know Mom had already started going through my things. That night, as I was coming down for dinner, I heard them shouting. Loud, vicious. I found it, Shawn. Mom's voice shrill and broken. Don't you dare lie to me. I found your filthy little love note. There was a heavy, sickening silence. I pressed myself against the wall, my stomach twisting into knots. She's just a child. Mom cried, her voice cracking. You're supposed to be her father. No, Shawn said, his voice low, firm. I was never her father. And she's not a child anymore. A sob tore through the air. I covered my mouth, fighting the urge to scream. Everything was crashing down. Every lie, every stolen glance, every guilty kiss. Mom knew, and there was no going back. I didn't sleep that night. I heard everything, Mom's crying, the slamming of doors, the heavy silence afterward that felt thicker than any words could ever be. I curled up in my bed, knees pulled to my chest, feeling like a child again. Small. Terrified. Guilty. The next morning the house felt different. Like a storm had ripped through it and left only wreckage behind. I came downstairs slowly, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. Mom sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly into a cold cup of coffee. Her makeup was smudged, her hair unbrushed. She didn't look like the elegant woman everyone admired. She looked broken. When she saw me, her face crumpled. How could you? She whispered, voice raw. Hazel. How could you do this to me? I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. What could I possibly say? I'm sorry. It was a mistake. None of it would be enough. I trusted you, she said, standing now trembling. I gave you everything. And you. Her voice broke, and she covered her mouth with her hand. Tears blurred my vision. Mom, I didn't mean for it to happen, I said, the words tumbling out like shattered glass. It just, she snapped, voice suddenly sharp. You just decided to betray me? With him. I flinched like she had slapped me. Was it worth it, Hazel? She said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Was it worth destroying this family? I shook my head desperately. No, I never wanted to hurt you. But I had. God, I had. Behind me, footsteps echoed down the hall. Shawn. He entered the kitchen like he belonged there. Like he wasn't the reason everything was falling apart. His eyes locked with mine for a second. A flicker of something painful, something desperate. Don't, Mom said coldly, holding up a hand to stop him. Not a word, Shawn. Not a damn word. He stood there silent. His jaw was clenched, his hands fists at his sides. There was no apology in him. No regret. Only a twisted kind of longing. Not for Mom. For me. Mom turned to me, her face pale, lips trembling. You're 18, Hazel. Legally an adult. Congratulations. Her voice dripped with venom. You can have him now. Those words sliced through me like knives. I don't want him. I cried, the tears finally spilling over. I got caught up, I was stupid. She laughed, then a hollow, broken sound. No, sweet girl. You weren't stupid. You knew exactly what you were doing. I tried to reach for her, but she recoiled like I was poison. Leave, she said, voice shaking but firm. Get out of this house. Now. I stared at her, heart splintering into a million pieces. But where? I whispered. Anywhere but here, she said, turning her back to me. I looked at Shawn, hoping, praying, for him to say something. To fix it. But he just stood there silent. In the end, I packed a bag with shaking hands. I walked out of that big, beautiful house without looking back. And just like that, the perfect family illusion was gone. Shattered. Have you ever imagined yourself in this kind of situation? What did you do about it? Subscribe to this channel and hit on notifications for more interesting stories like this.